the architect's betrayal, and the mogul's secret warning. If you think you know how this story ends, think again. Imagine this. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, a symbol of 5 years of blissful marriage, filled the air when a man shattered that home with one brutal and simple statement: "I want a divorce, Alice." But the real shock didn't come from the devastated wife, but from a tiny, unexpected heartbeat. A heartbeat no one, except her, knew existed. What do you do when you lose everything, but gain the world's most precious secret? A secret that could either destroy an empire or build a new one. If you're hooked, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the story. Let's begin. The price of dignity. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen when Mark Thompson uttered the words that would shatter 5 years of marriage. "I want a divorce, Alice." Alice Miller held her white porcelain mug, a wedding gift, as the dark liquid swirled gently. Her fingers tightened around the warm ceramic. "Is it about Samantha Hayes?" she asked, with a calm she didn't feel. Mark looked out the panoramic windows of the penthouse, which stretched across the London skyline. "I don't want to hurt you more than I have to." "An evasive answer is another way of hurting," Alice retorted, placing the mug on the marble island. The clink of porcelain echoed in the tense silence. "Yes, it is," Mark finally admitted, loosening the navy blue tie Alice had given him for their last anniversary. "Things just happened." Alice let out a bitter laugh. "Things don't just happen for 3 months, Mark. They are built. They are chosen. They are kept secret." Mark's face hardened. "I didn't want to have this conversation like this." "And how did you want to have it? After your lawyers handed me the papers? Or when photos of you and her appeared in the society magazines?" Mark stood, smoothing his custom-made suit. "The lawyers will contact you this afternoon. I've been generous with the terms." "Your generosity moves me," Alice replied, not moving from her seat. "Were you also generous when you offered her my position at the firm?" "That's business. Everything with you has always been a business, hasn't it?" Mark picked up his Italian leather briefcase. "Let's keep this civil, Alice. Don't make things complicated." "Complicated? As an architect at your firm for 7 years, as your wife for 5, did I ever complicate anything?" Silence was his only answer. Alice waited until she heard the private elevator close before allowing the tears to fall. She walked to the master bathroom. Her reflection in the mirror showed the face of a 33-year-old woman who, until that morning, believed she had a perfect life. The dizziness came suddenly. She barely made it to the toilet before throwing up the coffee and what little dignity she had left. When the nausea passed, her eyes fixed on her phone's calendar. 3 weeks late. With trembling hands, she opened the cabinet under the sink. The pregnancy test had been there for months, bought in a moment of hope, when they still believed that starting a family was part of the plan. 15 minutes later, 2 pink lines confirmed what her body already knew. A child, her child. The child Mark would never know existed. The phone rang, breaking the moment. It was an email from the city's most prestigious law firm. Subject: divorce terms. Urgent. Alice stood up from the cold floor, wiped her tears, and straightened her back. She had exactly 8 hours to gather her belongings from the office, find a place to live, and decide how to face her new reality. The pregnancy test ended up at the bottom of her purse. Her hand instinctively rested on her still flat stomach. "It'll be you and me against the world, little one," she whispered, as the morning sun bathed the city that would soon no longer be her home. What would you do if your world came crashing down like this? Share your first thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the emotional journey ahead. A new beginning in disguise. Alice's resume lay on dozens of desks across London. An architect who graduated with honors, with experience in international projects, a portfolio of award-winning designs, and an increasingly difficult explanation for her sudden departure from Thompson Developments. "Why did you leave your last job?" the HR director of Miranda Architectural Group asked, studying her file. "Looking for new horizons," Alice replied, discreetly adjusting the blazer that was getting harder to button each day. "With your experience, it's strange that Thompson let you go. Perhaps you should ask him," Alice retorted, maintaining a professional smile while fighting morning sickness that threatened to ruin the interview. 3 weeks and 15 interviews later, the reality was clear. The corporate world of architecture in London was too small, and rumors traveled faster than cover letters. Her bank account was shrinking at the same rate her belly was growing. At 4 months pregnant, the small studio apartment was starting to feel like an unnecessary luxury. That's when she met Mrs. Davis. The Angel's Nook was one of those restaurants that survived fads and crises. White tablecloths, silver cutlery, and a clientele that included everyone from politicians to artists. Alice had gone in looking for the restroom, feeling dizzy after another failed interview. "Are you all right, dear?" a motherly voice asked when Alice emerged. Mrs. Davis, with her silver hair and spotless apron, offered her a glass of sparkling water with lemon. "Pregnancy isn't easy, especially when you're alone." Alice drank in silence, surprised by the woman's insight. "How did you know?" 30 years in the restaurant business, my girl. You learn to read people." Mrs. Davis sat down across from her. "Do you have any experience in service?" "No, I'm an architect, and construction companies don't hire pregnant architects." Alice shook her head. "But restaurants do hire smart waitresses," Mrs. Davis continued. "The uniform is adjustable, the tips are good, and we have medical benefits." "I've never—" "Everyone starts with nothing," Mrs. Davis interrupted. "But you look like a quick learner." That night, in her apartment, Alice stared at the restaurant's business card. Her university degree hung on the wall, next to her last ultrasound image. On her computer, a draft of another cover letter waited to be sent. "Sometimes you have to take a step back to gain momentum," she whispered, remembering her mother's words. The next day, Alice Miller, former project manager at Thompson Developments, was learning to balance plates and memorize the daily specials. Her feet ached, her back complained, but for the first time in months, she had a plan. "Cheese board for table 7, the chef announced. Alice adjusted her new apron and straightened her posture. In the staff changing room mirror, her reflection showed a different woman. Wounded pride was slowly transforming into determination. Her baby moved, as if applauding her decision. "This is temporary," she promised herself and the little one. "But it's our beginning." Do you think Alice's biggest challenge will be keeping her secret while planning her future? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more empowering stories, secrets, hope, and an inevitable confrontation. Consequences and choices. The news spread through London like wildfire. The morning after the restaurant encounter, Alice's phone wouldn't stop vibrating with messages from numbers she had blocked months ago. "Is it true you're pregnant? Why didn't you tell us? Did Mark know?" Mark's mother, Lady Thompson, was the first to show up at the restaurant. "Where is she?" she demanded, her elegant figure clashing with the quiet lunch hour. "Where is Alice?" Alice emerged from the kitchen, her uniform spotless and her face serene. Mrs. Davis appeared like a protective shadow. "Ma'am, this is a respectable establishment. If you wish to have a private conversation, I suggest you make an appointment for another time." "An appointment? With the woman who hid from my son that he's going to be a father? With the woman your son abandoned without asking if there were any consequences?" Alice retorted, her voice low but firm. "Yes, Lady Thompson, this baby is as much a Miller as a Thompson. But Mark gave up any right when he signed the divorce papers without asking questions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have tables to attend to." Then came his sister, Catherine, more diplomatic, but equally insistent. "Alice, please," she pleaded during her afternoon visit. "Mark is heartbroken. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. And where was that concern when he left me for an influencer? He made a mistake. We all make them. No, Catherine. A mistake is confusing salt with sugar. What Mark did was a choice. The calls from the lawyers began that same afternoon. Alice referred them to her own lawyer, a young but brilliant professional whom Mrs. Davis had recommended. They can't force you to do anything, her lawyer assured her during a brief consultation. You signed a waiver of spousal support. The baby was not in the divorce terms because you didn't declare it. Legally, you are protected. Mark tried to contact her directly 3 times. The first through a floral arrangement sent to the restaurant, which Alice donated to the nearby hospital. The second, by waiting for her outside work. But Mrs. Davis chased him off with threats to call security. The third, with a letter that arrived at her apartment. "My love," it began. Alice tore it up without reading further. At her next medical checkup, the doctor noted her tension. "The baby is perfectly healthy," she assured her. "But you need to reduce your stress." "How?" Alice asked, looking at the ultrasound image. "When everyone seems to feel entitled to an opinion about my decisions?" "Because they are your decisions," the doctor replied. "And so far, every one of them has been for the good of this little one." That night, Alice finally opened the envelope from the University of Oxford. The scholarship was for a full ride. Tuition, living expenses, international health insurance, an escape, a new life. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered, caressing her belly. "Ready to start over?" The baby kicked, as always, at the perfect moment. Do you think Alice made the right choice by keeping her pregnancy a secret? What would you have done in her situation? Share your feelings in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the powerful conclusion. The architects rise and the moguls fall. The exclusive appeared in Society Weekly. Samantha Hayes and her demands for her wedding to Mark Thompson. The article detailed the influencer's whims, a private island in the Maldives, a €500,000 dress, and a guest list that included half the entertainment world. "Look at this," a colleague named Harry commented, showing Alice the magazine during her break. "Your ex is not holding back on the spending." Alice smiled as she nibbled on an apple. Her 7th month of pregnancy had made her especially hungry. High prices don't guarantee happiness, but the real crack in their perfect facade appeared a week later. Alice was organizing the restaurant's cellar when she overheard a conversation between 2 executives at the next table. "Thompson is losing control," one said. "The City Towers project is 2 months behind schedule." "It's that new girlfriend of his," the other replied. "She's distracting him. Did you know she's demanded to be the official face of all new developments? Well, I heard she's pushing to be named creative director. No experience, no qualifications, nothing." Alice continued her inventory, but her ears remained alert. She told herself it wasn't morbid curiosity, but business intelligence. That same afternoon, Samantha appeared at the restaurant with 2 friends. She didn't recognize Alice, who had served her months before. "I need Mark to sell that awful Mayfair penthouse," she heard her say between sips of her martini. "I'm not living where he lived with the ex. Besides, my architect from the reality show says we can build something more Instagrammable." "Reality show?" one of her companions asked. "Sammy's Perfect Life. It premieres next month. Mark doesn't know yet, but part of the filming will be in his office. You know, to show my entrepreneurial side." Alice nearly spilled the wine she was serving at the next table. Her baby kicked hard, as if sharing her disbelief. Meanwhile, the letter from Oxford was still on her nightstand, waiting for a decision. The program started in 4 months, right when her baby would be 6 weeks old. It was crazy to consider such a drastic change, but every day in London felt like a countdown. That night, as she was closing the restaurant, Mrs. Davis found her checking flights on her phone. "Have you made a decision?" she asked, with her usual wisdom. "Almost," Alice replied, caressing her belly. But every time I think about leaving, something stops me. Fear or hope? Mrs. Davis asked. Maybe both, Alice admitted. But today I understood something important. And what is it? That while I was serving tables to build our future, others are destroying theirs to keep up appearances. Mrs. Davis smiled, handing her an envelope. Then this will interest you. A Mr. Harrison came by while you were on your break. He left your letter of recommendation for the master's program. Alice opened the envelope with trembling hands. The letter was more than a recommendation. It was a validation of everything she had fought for. Sometimes, Mrs. Davis said, the prettiest masks are the first to fall. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning. Photos of Samantha kissing Liam Baker, Mark's main partner on the City Towers project, first appeared on Twitter, and then spread like a virus across all media. Exclusive! Fiancé of real estate mogul Mark Thompson, caught in a compromising situation with his business partner, the headline screamed. Alice found out while folding napkins at the restaurant. Her phone wouldn't stop receiving links and messages from former colleagues. Alice, did you see? Harry exclaimed, showing her his tablet. Looks like your ex has terrible taste in partners. The photos were unequivocal. Samantha and Liam on a yacht in the Mediterranean, at a Mayfair restaurant, leaving a hotel in the West End. All dated within the last 3 weeks. Karma exists, a waitress muttered, but the real chaos came that night. Mark appeared at the restaurant, visibly drunk. Alice! He shouted from the entrance. I need to talk to you. Mrs. Davis tried to intercept him. Mr. Thompson, this is neither the time nor the place. It's the only place I can find her, he insisted, stumbling. Alice, please. Alice came out of the kitchen, her 8-month pregnant belly impossible to hide under her uniform. Mark, you're making a scene. A scene? He laughed bitterly. Like the one Samantha made. Like the one you made by hiding my son from me. Keep your voice down, Alice warned, leading Mark to a secluded table. Sit down. I ruined everything, didn't I? He murmured, collapsing into the chair. I lost you. I lost my son. And now this. The City Towers project is dead. Liam had the key contacts. Without him, Mark ran a hand over his face. And Samantha, I'm not your therapist, Alice interrupted. And this is not the time. Then when? When you're in Oxford. I have contacts at the university, Alice. Please don't take my son from me. We can try again. We can. No, she interrupted him firmly. There is no we. You made your choice, Mark. And I made mine. And now I choose for you to leave before I call security. As 2 guards escorted Mark out of the restaurant, Alice felt a contraction. Not labor, but a Braxton Hicks contraction, her doctor had explained. Her body was rehearsing for the real moment. That night, in her apartment, Alice finally replied to the email from Oxford, accepting the scholarship. As she wrote, the news on television showed Thompson Development's stock plummeting, and rumors that several investors were pulling out of the City Towers project. Sometimes, little one, she whispered to her belly, the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one. The baby kicked, as if in agreement. In 2 weeks, she would have her last ultrasound. In a month, her last day at the restaurant. And in 6 weeks, if all went according to plan, they would be on a plane to Oxford. The end had come, but it wasn't the one Mark had imagined. Did you see that twist coming? Share your surprise and thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the final transformation. A new horizon. The morning Mark appeared at her building with a bouquet of white roses and a box from the most exclusive jewelry store on Bond Street. Alice was packing the last of the architecture books she hadn't yet shipped to Oxford. 5 minutes, he pleaded from the other side of the door. Just 5 minutes, Alice. She watched the scene through the peephole. Mark Thompson, the real estate mogul, looked disheveled and tired. so different from the man who had left her 8 months ago. "The neighbors will call the police if you keep knocking like that," Alice warned, finally opening the door. "You," he murmured, his eyes fixed on her 9-month belly. "You're beautiful. What do you want, Mark?" He tried to enter, but Alice blocked the way. The hallway would be enough for this conversation. "I canceled the sale of the Mayfair penthouse," he announced, as if that changed everything. "We can go back, raise our son there. I've been in therapy, Alice. It's been 3 weeks. I've realized all my mistakes." 3 weeks of therapy versus 8 months of absence? She replied, raising an eyebrow. "This ring was my grandmother's," he continued, opening the velvet box. "I always wanted to give it to you." "But you gave it to Samantha," Alice finished. "I never gave it to her. I couldn't. It wasn't for her." Alice looked at the old diamond and sapphire ring. In another life, it would have meant everything. Now, it was just a reminder of broken promises. "My flight leaves in 2 weeks," she informed him, closing the box without touching the ring. "The baby could arrive at any moment, and you came too late, Mark. Too late. He's my son, too. A son who didn't exist when you left me. A son who only mattered to you when your new perfect life fell apart." Tears began to run down Mark's face. "Please, Alice, I love you. I've always loved you." "Love isn't an insurance policy you can claim when everything else fails," she replied, feeling a real contraction this time. "And now I need you to go. I'm expected at the hospital." He paled. "Let me take you. Mrs. Davis is downstairs. She'll accompany me." "I'm the father," he said. "You are the man who abandoned us," Alice corrected, holding her belly. "And this moment is mine." As Mark stood paralyzed in the hallway, Alice slowly walked down the stairs, each step marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. In the car, Mrs. Davis was waiting for her with a suitcase and a maternal smile. "Are you ready, dear?" Alice looked back one last time. Mark had disappeared. "More than ever," she replied, as another contraction announced that her son had chosen this moment, precisely this moment, to begin his own story. What an emotional twist. Do you think Alice made the right choice, or should she have given Mark another chance? Share your feelings in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the inspiring final chapter, Building a Legacy. Oxford was cloudy the day Alice and her son Arthur arrived at the airport. The baby, just 6 weeks old, was sleeping soundly in his car seat as she struggled with the luggage. "Welcome to Oxford," greeted Dr. Ava Jones, the master's program coordinator, who was waiting for her at the exit. "Good flight?" "As good as it can be with a newborn," Alice smiled, grateful for the help with her bags. The small flat the university had found for her was modest, but bright, with a small extra room that could serve as a studio. The white walls reminded her of a blank canvas waiting to be filled with new memories. "Babies are welcome in all classes," Ava explained as she helped her settle in. "The university has a daycare on campus, but we understand if you prefer to have him with you for the first few weeks." News from London arrived like distant echoes. Mark had resigned as CEO of Thompson Developments. The company was now in the hands of a board of directors. The City Towers project had been permanently canceled. Samantha had gotten her reality show, but the viewership was disastrous. Rumors placed her in Los Angeles, trying to relaunch her career as a limited success influencer. Alice immersed herself in her studies with the same determination she had shown serving tables. Between bottles and diapers, she designed sustainable building projects that began to attract the attention of her professors. "Your proposal for the zero-energy building is extraordinary," her tutor commented 3 months later. "Have you considered presenting it at the Green Architecture Congress in Berlin?" Arthur grew strong and healthy, his dark eyes identical to his mother's. Video calls with Mrs. Davis were weekly, and the restaurant had become a kind of information center where her former colleagues asked about her. "You won first place in the design contest," Ava informed her one spring afternoon. The prize includes an internship at one of Europe's most important architectural firms. Mark's emails arrived regularly, less insistent, more respectful. Photos of the empty Mayfair penthouse, news about the company, cautious questions about Arthur. Alice responded with professional courtesy, occasionally sending photos of her son, but holding firm to the boundaries she had set. One morning, while preparing her presentation for the Berlin Congress, Alice found an old photo of the Angel's Nook among her papers. The image of the restaurant with its white tablecloths and old chandeliers brought a nostalgic smile to her face. "Look, Arthur," she whispered to the baby crawling around her home studio. "That's where our real story began." The little one babbled happily, patting the blueprints spread out on the coffee table. "You know what?" Alice continued, lifting her son into her arms. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters." From her window in Oxford, the sky was opening up, infinite and promising. The future, like the buildings she now designed, was being built one floor at a time, with solid foundations and durable materials. And in that future, the title of waitress on her resume shone with as much pride as her imminent master's degree in sustainable architecture. What does Alice's journey to Oxford teach us about resilience and finding your true path? Share your reflections in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the final chapter. The masterpiece of life. The headlines of the Financial Times were devastating. Thompson Developments faces worst crisis in 20 years. The article detailed a 40% drop in stock value and the loss of multi-million-dollar contracts after the scandal. In Oxford, Alice read the news while feeding Arthur in the university library. The baby, now 8 months old, eagerly devoured his porridge as she reviewed the final details of her thesis. "Architect Miller," Professor Williams called, approaching her table. "Your project on sustainable rehabilitation has been selected for the City Council's pilot program." "Really?" Alice nearly spilled her coffee. "But I'm just a master's student. A student who is revolutionizing our way of thinking about green architecture," he corrected. "The committee was impressed with your proposal to transform abandoned buildings into self-sustaining spaces." Meanwhile, in London, Mark was facing the consequences of his decisions. The board of directors had named a new CEO, relegating him to a ceremonial position. His office on the top floor, where he had once built empires of glass and steel, now looked like a golden cage. Samantha had disappeared from the social scene after the failure of her reality show. Rumors placed her in Los Angeles, trying to relaunch her career as a limited success influencer. "Your father isn't a bad man," Alice explained to Arthur as they worked in her home studio. "He's just someone who lost his way." Mark's emails had become monthly, more reflective. He no longer mentioned reconciliation, but shared news about trusts set up for Arthur and business decisions that would affect his son's future. "Life has a strange way of balancing things," Mrs. Davis commented during a video call. "Did you hear that Liam Baker is bankrupt?" Alice nodded. Mark's former partner had tried to launch his own real estate company, only to fail spectacularly. Her own project, on the other hand, was flourishing. The Oxford City Council's pilot program had attracted the attention of international investors. Her thesis on regenerative architecture was being translated into 3 languages. "It's ironic," she reflected one night while watching Arthur sleep. "When I was serving tables, some clients wouldn't even look me in the eye. Now, those same business people pay by the hour for my consulting on sustainable construction." Time, that relentless architect, had built something that neither money nor power could buy: authenticity. On her desk, next to the blueprints of her latest project, lay her old apron from the Angel's Nook. She had framed it not as a reminder of hard times, but as a testament to her resilience. "Consequences," she wrote in her diary that night, "are not punishments or rewards. They are simply the echo of our own decisions." Arthur stirred in his crib, murmuring in his sleep, Alice smiled, thinking about how every decision, every moment of pain and triumph had led her exactly to where she needed to be. A year and a half after her departure, Alice returned to London. This time not as Mark Thompson's wounded ex-wife, but as the keynote speaker at the International Sustainable Construction Congress. "Look who's on the cover," Mrs. Davis exclaimed, showing her the magazine Architecture Today. Alice, elegant in an emerald green pantsuit, smiled from the cover next to the headline, "The Green Revolution in European Architecture." Arthur, now a 2-year-old boy who walked with determination, explored the Angel's Nook with fascination. "My beautiful boy," Mrs. Davis lifted him into her arms. "Do you know that this is where your mother started her new life?" The reunion with London was like waking from a long dream. The city had changed, or perhaps it was she who had changed. Her presentation at the Congress attracted the cream of the crop of the real estate world, including several former colleagues from Thompson Developments. "Your proposal to transform abandoned buildings into self-sufficient communities is revolutionary," the new CEO of Miranda Architectural Group commented during the reception. "Would you consider a strategic alliance?" Alice smiled, remembering that failed interview 2 years ago. "Send the proposal to my office in Oxford. My team will evaluate it." News of her temporary return spread quickly. Mark requested to see her through his lawyers, a formal meeting to discuss Arthur's future. They met at a neutral cafe, far from the places they once shared. Mark had aged more than he should have in 2 years. The graying temples and the lines around his eyes told the story of his defeats. "He looks like you," he commented, watching Arthur play with his crayons. "He has your determination and your sense of timing." "He always knows when to make a dramatic entrance," Alice replied. The conversation was civil, adult. They discussed visits, vacations, education. They didn't mention the past. There was no need. The wounds had healed, leaving only lessons. "I saw your presentation at the Congress," Mark said as they parted. "You're changing the world, Alice. I always knew you would." "Sometimes," she replied, "we need to lose our way to find our true north." That night, on her last visit to the Angel's Nook, Alice put on her black uniform again, this time by choice. She served tables for an hour amid laughter and nostalgic tears. "So we don't forget where we came from," she explained to Arthur, who watched her fascinated from Mrs. Davis's arms. The lights of London shone differently now, more like guiding stars than fireworks. In her suitcase, along with her return ticket to Oxford, she carried 3 new contracts and a certainty. She had found her path, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. What an incredible journey of resilience and transformation. What does Alice's story teach us about finding success and happiness after adversity? Share your deepest thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the final chapter. The circle closes. The Sustainable Architecture Award ceremony was held at the Tate Modern, the same place where 5 years ago Alice had accompanied Mark to countless social events. This time, she was the protagonist for her revolutionary contribution to green architecture and her impact on transforming abandoned urban spaces. The International Sustainable Architecture Award 2025 goes to Alice Miller, the presenter announced. Arthur, now a 3-year-old boy in a small suit, clapped from his seat next to Mrs. Davis, who had traveled from London especially for the occasion. In the front row, Alice's team from Oxford and London smiled with pride. "This award," Alice began from the podium, "is for everyone who understands that sometimes we must deconstruct to build something better. For those who know that true architecture isn't just about buildings, but about building futures." In the audience, Mark listened in silence. He was no longer the all-powerful mogul, but he had found his own redemption. His new company, more modest but ethical, specialized in sustainable social housing. After the ceremony, As photographers captured the moment, Arthur ran to his father. Mark lifted him with a naturalness that only time and maturity had managed to build. "Congratulations," Mark said, approaching Alice. "The Berlin project is impressive." "Thank you," she replied with a genuine smile. "I heard about your social housing initiative. It's admirable." At the cocktail party, Society magazine circulated with the latest gossip. Samantha Hayes had returned to London, this time as a second-rate real estate agent. Her reality show was just a shameful memory on YouTube. "Life has a curious way of putting everyone in their place," Mrs. Davis commented, watching Alice interact with international investors. The Angel's Nook now had a branch in Oxford, managed by Mrs. Davis's eldest son, where Alice regularly had lunch with her team. Her old black apron remained framed in her office, next to her awards and recognitions. "Mommy," Arthur called, tugging on her evening dress. "Can we go eat at Grandma Davis's restaurant?" Alice looked around. The elegant museum, the business people in expensive suits, the champagne glasses. Then she looked at her son, at Mrs. Davis, at her team, even at Mark, and smiled. "Yes, my love. Let's go back to where it all began." The circle had closed, not as a prison that confined her, but as an embrace that had made her stronger. Her story, which had begun with bitter coffee and a broken heart, ended with a dinner among family and friends, in the place where she had learned that dignity is priceless, and that the sweetest success is built with your own hands. As they walked toward the restaurant, Alice remembered the words she had written in her diary that first night as a waitress. "Sometimes you have to serve tables to learn how to build towers." And without a doubt, she had built not just buildings, but an entire life. What an incredible journey of resilience and transformation. What does Alice's story teach us about finding success and happiness after adversity? Share your deepest thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring and life-affirming narratives.